Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Yehuda.
Yeah, you mentioned different names.
Right.
But you didn't talk about the birth name. How important the birth name is.
Spiritually or your actual literal?
Spiritually.
Okay. Yeah. Your birth name is critical and important. We're talking about your spiritual birth name. It kind of ties into the same element. It should reflect. In some of our ancient systems, there are naming ceremonies when there is a birth. Names carry tones, vibrations, and frequencies. Unfortunately, the English language has no tone, no frequency. It's a language that's barely over 600 years old. Most of your Semitic languages, even prior to your Semitic language, Semitic, which ties you into biblical and Quranic, when you go back in ancient Egypt, Africa, things of that nature, they carry tones and frequencies, and the name that's given should activate that frequency. So your birth point or your name given at birth, and that's going to change again as you go if you're on that spiritual path. Now let's say there was something else you wanted to tap into. Was there something else you wanted to add to it? The name, the birth name, Yehuda?
No, I'm saying on the physical and the spiritual part, right?
Right.
How powerful is that birth name? And why I'm asking that question is that with my reading still, right? It said that I'm the one who gave myself that name.
Correct.
Right? And if I give myself that name before I was even born, it must be something powerful.
Right. Well, when you're talking about, we're going to talk about the subjective universe and the objective universe. We're going to get into that tonight. So when it's talking about predestination, we don't want to think of that in religious sense.
Right.
Because now we also got to tap into reincarnation. Because when you say that you were birthed, you got to understand, you have to go deep within the subconscious mind to find out what incarnation you are on now. Now that whole thing when you read in your religious text about 144,144, you're supposed to come here over a period of 144,000 years. Back and forth until you live that cycle out, and then you don't need to return here anymore. Then you will return to a vital life force being, a being of life and energy. The question is, when dealing with that birth name or being birthed into the universe, that when you say that you chose that name, that would obviously be because you've been here before. Now remember, as we talked about last week, whatever you come back as is something you need to master. You understand what I'm saying? So we got to get out of this illusion that you might not have been a male the last time you were here. You understand what I'm saying? Now, this is something that you're not going to be able to learn and find in a book. And I talked about this last week. There's certain spiritual techniques, magical systems you have to work, astral traveling, astral projection, things of that nature, that you would have to raise yourself up to so you can open yourself up to the reality. And I can give an exercise tonight. We'll do that later that one can do at the house to see and awaken their awareness to a previous, what they were in a past life. Because you definitely have not, it's not your first time here. That's the other thing. There's many things we can talk about to kind of connect that. We always get what they call deja vu. We feel like we've been here before. We feel like we know people. We see people. Things of that nature. So, but yes, the name is very important in the sense that you chose it, but also still ties into the fact that name's got to fit your character, your personality. Because in any spiritual name, like Yehuda, Lion of the tribe of Judah, right? We know Lion ties into the Leo constellation, right? We know that opens a whole nother porthole and gateway. Really, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has nothing to do with the Bible, has nothing to do with Jesus. It deals with charting the stars in the constellation. Now we know that Jesus figure is the Horus character, etc. But that has a significant name because that holds power. And that's a name you've been carrying for many years. Okay? So names are very important. Hopefully that answers your question. Anybody else have any questions before we continue? Now remember, there's a question and answer. Raise your hand if you got a question, we'll answer.
Well, how do you know about this?
That's for her. She picked up that oil book. I'll tell you later. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
It is coming down. How would you know when you need to pick a name or get a name other than your birth name your parents gave you?
You'll know it's as simple as this. And one thing about creating your own spiritual path, it's not, you don't know when somebody tells you. See, the objective of creating your own spiritual path is, again, as I said a few minutes ago, not following or following up on anybody or anything. It doesn't mean you can't read books, get guidance, use scholars and teachers as a roadmap. But what becomes dangerous is when you follow something exclusively, you cut off all your creativity and your connection to the spiritual world. Now, a name in your case, as you're an older individual, right? You're a mature adult. No, not old. Not like that. For those that may not have been in this at a very young age or birthed into it, that would be your case. You would just need, when you feel the urge that it's time for you to take on a spiritual title, a person in your shoes would look at some names, the meanings, and as you look at the names and the meanings, the one that resonates with you, that you just feel a connection with, you're not second guessing. When you're looking at names and you're trying to choose a name and you have doubts or you're not really sure, that's not the name for you. When you look at a name and you hear the meaning is just going to click and resonate with you, you're going to say, that describes me. That's the attribute that I carry right now. That's the name. You understand? Now, other ways to get a name are through spiritual divination. You could do a spiritual reading. There's many different systems that can be done. You know, I talked to you about that. That's another way. If you want the spirits to pull a name for you, they can bring the name forward for you too. So either one can be done. That's the correct method for somebody in your situation. Whereas somebody that, like my son, and I came into this when I was 15, 16 years old. Some of us, we went through different systems. We came up under elders who, as we went through these different schools, we were given our names based on the initiations and the different things that we went through. So it's a little bit different. So the answer to that question is really based upon the principle where you are at right now in your spiritual journey and how you came into your spiritual journey. So somebody like you who came in the adult stages, pretty much for the most part, that's the route you would want to go. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, question. What if you already did that without even knowing you did that?
That's fine. That's called creating your own spiritual path. Now, I know personally with you, it's a different case with you, which we won't give her up, but I know we did a whole thing, and I know who and what you are. I know the spirits that you work with. In your case, you've had, like I told, you know, I'm not going to get into details, but you had spirits with you since childhood, so they're going to communicate with you, and if that name was revealed to you, you don't go against that. So if that was done, and it was, that's what it is. Until something else happens and that transitions into something else. All right. So you opened up the door with the names, man. Now the reason why that's important, and not to stay on the defense of this, because when you say a name, it carries a tone. Now, even if we have an English name, if your name is John, let me show you. It commands. So somebody walked to that door that was named John, and I said, "Hey, John." John's gonna stop, turn around and look. All right. This is why when religion, which is the biggest hoax and garbage, that's why there's been this big debate. What is the name of the Creator when you read the Bible and the Quran? Nobody knows the real name of the Creator. It's not Hashem. It's not Yahuwah. It's not Yahweh. It's not Jehovah. There's no letter J in the Hebrew alphabet. That's only a 600-year-old translation. The question is, if we knew the name from a religious perspective and we called upon the name, we would command the attention of the Creator for one split second. What would that mean? They say he's omnipotent and omnipresent, omniscient. That would negate that fact. Because if you really think the Creator of the balanced universe listens to people's prayers and stops and listens to your personal prayer, that you don't understand what creation and nature is about. It has nothing to do with that. See, that's Santa Claus shit. You might as well believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus because it's the same methodology, and we're gonna eliminate that tonight, because that's the stuff we need to get as far away from as we can, because it's keeping us mentally enslaved. It's stopping us from spiritually reaching in our full potential. We will never understand what spiritual magic is and ancestral worship is if you still look at it from a religious perspective and you're spooked out about it. The problem is people fear what they don't know, so they have preconceived notions about things that they're not familiar with. There he is. There he is. That's the problem with that. And we're going to dispel those myths. So when I said earlier, for people that may not have been here, I'm a black magician. I work with dark magic, okay? Not magic in the sense that Hollywood teaches you, slitting goats' necks and blood sacrifices, for those that weren't here a few minutes ago. Because see, when I say that, that's what they want you to think. And that's not what I'm talking about. Now always remember, words carry tones. And words, when that tone is activated, images appear. And they did this, that's why they put out, over all these years, all these pictures of Jesus, how they wanted you to see. Pictures of the prophet. So the spell is so deep. If I say Jesus, I don't care how black and cultural you think you are, that white image still pops in your head. Because it carries a tone. They know that. It carries a frequency. It's the same thing. If I say black magic and witchcraft, you start thinking of Hollywood and horror and blood sacrifice. Well, let's be real. Let's be real with ourselves. We're going to dispel that. Now that's done intentionally because we are preconditioned from birth. So real magic is manipulating the subconscious mind and making it work for you. Okay? And in order to do that, you have to be retaught everything you've been taught. Because everything we've been taught has been wrong. We all came up through some type of religious system, be it Islam, Christianity, Judaism, whatever. And it's left such a damage and trauma on our subconscious mind that a lot of us can't escape from it, even when we get into high levels of consciousness. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of people into the Yoruba thing and the Egyptology thing, but they're still religious at heart, and they don't see it. Now Horus becomes their new Jesus. Ra is their new Most High God. That's not what this is about. If you still look at the Egyptian deities in a monotheistic sense, then you're not understanding this. Those are archetype energies that one needs to access to work when they're dealing with spiritual magic. Each one affiliates with an aspect of nature, creation, and they carry a certain level of consciousness. Tahuti deals with wisdom, so does Obatala. Shango is a warrior spirit, correct? Heru is a warrior spirit when activated correctly, okay? Ra, when dealing with the planetary movements, I told you before, one of his animal signs is the bull. Fire is his element. So when you're working the bull, when the moon is in the planetary phase of Taurus, you can work with the deity Ra for purification purposes, to clear the subconscious mind, for cleansing purposes. They all tie into the planetary movements, levels of consciousness, and aspects of elements of nature. That's what real magic is, okay? Has nothing to do with any of that other stuff. If we got back to that spiritual science, then things will really change for us. See, they're playing games with your minds, as I've said the last 3-4 classes. There's always some shooting on the news that's racially motivated that they got your emotions tapped into. Another one just happened in Brooklyn. A cop just beat some young teenage boy with a baton in the classroom. It was all over the news. Well, daily news. You may not have seen it down here, but if you can pull it up on the internet. Every other day there's something on the news racially motivated where they're trying to captivate your emotions. So they want you to get mad, they want you to get angry, they want you to go out to the streets and protest, so that can open the door for them to come in with tanks and the National Guard and bring in martial law. Because what you going to this, what war, how you going to fight this war? You got all these other cats talking this militant shit, but I don't see any plan. You talking about a killer that's got army tanks, nuclear weapons, high-tech weapons. How are we going to fight this war? See, they can't beat us here, and they can't beat us spiritually. If we started working our magical system and conjuring up the spirits of our ancestors, shit's going to change quick. How do you think we got through slavery? That's the only way we survived slavery. We masked it behind Catholicism, called Santeria, which they still practice today for whatever reason, and they still use Catholic images today for whatever reason, and they'll tell you it's tradition purposes, but yet, and I can tell you this amongst the Latino community, Cubans down here are some of the most racist motherfuckers you ever meet in your life. They worship black gods, but yet they don't want nothing to do with blackness. Not all of them, most of them. But they're worshiping black gods from West Africa, but they want to, because they have racism amongst themselves, they still need to use Catholic images to convey that message.